Army 578, calling right tower for instructions.
Army 578, come in for a closer look.
Yes, the newcomer soon discovers the scope of the work that goes on here. From the varied amount of aircraft which daily wheel above right field, he gets his first idea of the diversity of our many projects. All manner and description of planes are flown in for analysis, testing, and exhaustive study. Foreign ships like the Hurricane and the deadly little Spitfire, the P-39, which is making such a great name for itself on the Russian front, the P-40, Chenault's Flying Tiger, the P-38, Forked Lightning, the P-47, ready for battle above the ceiling of any plane in the air today, the A-20, the attack bomber which Axis munition centers know all too well, the B-25 from Shangri-La to Tokyo, the B-24, Rommel's Egyptian headache, the B-17, the famed Flying Fortress, and the B-19, the largest land bomber yet built, a promise of things to come. These planes and many more constantly are being studied, broken down in a search for defects of all kinds. Here, work on every type of apparatus pertaining to aircraft goes forward ceaselessly. These are listening devices. They are the magic ears which spot the enemy when he is miles away. This is a laboratory of aerodynamics. Its wind tunnels are geared up to subject wings to the stresses and strains of any kind of atmospheric condition. The study of airflow is a right field specialty. Here is an interesting demonstration. When a plane is flying properly, these bits of yarn lie flat on both the wings and tail. If it goes into a stall, the air burbles and the yarn behaves like this. Until the pilot once again has control. In the propeller shop, the most advanced techniques are formulated which pertain to this so important part of the ship. Master craftsmen, these mechanics go about their tasks with the care of jewelers working on delicate watches, deliberately, with patience and the utmost care. Balance is their watchword, and they seek it until the propeller is affected by the weight of a piece of ribbon. One of the field's most celebrated techniques is that of magnetic inspection. First, the metal is given a magnetizing charge. Then it is subjected to a bath of cleaning fluid. Under this continuous wet method, cracks and breakage anywhere in the object show up so clearly that they may be instantly spotted and the part discarded. The perfect units then are demagnetized and sent toward their respective job. Thus, with a perfect propeller, when it is necessary for a pilot to feather in order to save a disabled engine, he can do so immediately. Equally severe tests are given every inch of a plane's lifelines, the tubing. Exact gauges examine the flaring. Then enormous hydraulic pressure is driven into the tube. If the flare is faulty, it gives way. If well made, it will hold even when the tubing itself reaches its breaking point. Thus, a combat crew may go about its task knowing that the hundreds of feet of vital connectives beneath it will be down there in the heat and strain doing their jobs strongly and securely. Continual study is made of improvements on the hydraulic system. These lifts, which do so much to streamline a ship, control the flaps. Also the landing gear and the doors of the bomb bay. Brakes have an obvious importance. They are given terrific punishment in order to reveal any possible imperfections in the different units. Good pilots use their brakes only in an emergency, but when brakes are needed, they must be there to do their job efficiently. This severity of experiment is a usual procedure throughout all parts of the test center, for these researchers are as exacting and tough-minded a group as will be found anywhere in this warring world. These men are experts on the harmonization of guns and sighting devices. Already, the accuracy of American firepower is a legend from Bataan to Berlin, and these mechanics are a good part of the reason why. Checking, searching out new techniques, the ceaseless quest for absolute accuracy goes on night and day. And that's why fighter pilots of the Army Air Forces hang up the records they do. They're backed by the skill, ingenuity, and persistence of a bunch of lads that Hirohito would rather not think about. Or bore sighting like this gets results like this. Good anti-aircraft crews don't just happen. They get that way through practice on tow targets. Here's our development in this field: operation and handling of the target by a windlass, which thus permits perfect control in target practice. When the ack-ack session is over, a ring is slipped onto the cable and the target thus released over an open space where it can be retrieved and used again. A careful watch is kept on the development of incendiary bombs. This stuff has been geared up to burn through metal like so much cardboard. And it's just as potent on cement. Imagine anxious Adolf when these are dropping over Berchtesgaden like so much carnival confetti. Any raid, if carried out at night, brings with it the responsibility of a safe return. Wright Field has given the Air Forces equipment whereby the returning flyers can make landings without drawing the enemy to a lighted field. Lamps such as these are set up to outline the home port, or an emergency field if necessary, which the pilot doesn't even know about when he takes off. By picking up a beacon, he manipulates his instruments until he's on the landing beam, and the field lights become apparent to him alone. He then slides home in perfect safety to all concerned. This chamber can be made cold enough to test all types of clothing peculiar to flying conditions. That's the new electrically heated suit being given a tryout. In this chamber, oxygen can be so regulated as to permit a study of the reactions of men who must endure the high-altitude conditions of combat flight. The sergeant, one of our vast group of anonymous researchers, has volunteered to act as a guinea pig for this experiment. With the air being removed from the chamber, He virtually goes up to a dangerous ceiling unprotected by the mask which sustains the other flyer. As the pressure decreases, the man with the mask helps himself to more oxygen, while the sergeant grows increasingly groggy. By such fortitude on his part, coupled with the skill of engineers and observers, knowledge is obtained to forestall that ancient dread of all flyers, blackout. If the flyer has had a bit of hard luck, which requires him to bail out, he does so knowing that his chute is as perfect as ceaseless experimentation can make it. New fabrics are tested for strength by weight drops. New shapes in the chute itself are tried out. New combinations. And the men who go over the side have come to have the implicit belief in their equipment which comes only from utter and proved dependability. That load of silk has been earmarked by those paratroopers for delivery back to Japan. There they go, the high-flying dealers in destruction to those who would threaten our democratic way of life. And as they go, they take with them a knowledge that they are borne by planes that will take them to any destination, Tokyo in this case, and bring them back. They fly proved ships, use tested materiel for operations like these, daily underscoring the belief of General Jimmy Doolittle that the men behind the pilots are as important as the pilots themselves. With altitude the keynote in modern aerial warfare, higher into the clouds go our fast fighter airplanes, ever higher, breathing through the turbo Supercharger, an iron lung built into our ships with American ingenuity and know-how. Here you see a model, cut away to show its inside. Here is the regulator, set by the pilot through a cockpit control. The bellows in this unit compensate automatically for changes in air density during flight at different altitudes, by allowing more or less exhaust gas to drive the turbine wheel, or to escape through the wastegate. Mechanics must go over the Supercharger carefully. After shaking the unit to make sure mounting bolts are tight and inspecting for bullet holes, the turbine wheel is spun to see if it runs freely and smoothly. Next, a careful inspection of the buckets, looking for cracks both inside and out, and for elongations beyond the rim. Trouble in this department means removing the whole unit for repair in the shop. A cracked or elongated bucket is a weak one, liable to go and jam the Supercharger completely. The mechanic then inspects visually for warpage or cracking in the nozzle diaphragm by sighting between it and the turbine wheel. Also checked at this time is bucket alignment, and if warpage is apparent, the unit should be removed for repair. The feeler gauge is used to check clearance, which should be kept between 95 and 120 thousandths of an inch. Runout is spotted by placing the thumbnail against the rim of the revolving disc. If runout is found, there is most likely some distortion in the hub area, and for an inspection, the cooling cap must be removed. A check is made for cracked or loose bolt, then a further manual check for radial and end play in the turbine wheel. Now, over to the wastegate to see if it moves freely and with enough play to allow for heat expansion during flight. Next, the mechanic checks the Supercharger oil supply. it is highly important that proper grade oil be kept right up to the top of the filler pipe. Should the oil supply be found low, an inspection of the tank itself within the landing wheel well should be made. Here the mechanic looks and feels for oil leaks and checks to see if hose connections are tight. Forward in the wheel well, he inspects the regulator, checks control linkage as well as oil and air line from the engine. The exhaust manifold should be checked for leaks at the nozzle box inlet and in the cooling air pipe just above. When the cooling cap is replaced, care should be taken to maintain the clearance between it and the turbine wheel at the prescribed minimum of 1/8 of an inch. The keynote is altitude. The watchword, care. Care of the supercharger in its most minute detail. For only with such care can the turbo function properly at high altitude to make our fighters climb like homesick angels. Yes, it's the new P-40F, latest addition to a fighting family. Uncle Sam has reason to be proud of this full-grown baby who gets her wings from the American Eagle and her heart from the British Lion. It's a winning combination that means more altitude, but without fear of overheating. For a pressure cooling system ensures a pure flow of mixture without air dilution. The Rolls-Royce engine, roaring power plant of Spitfires and Hurricanes, differs little in outward appearance and operation from the Allison. But putting it into the P-40 was more than a matter of friendship between two nations. It means you'll spread those wings and climb. Climb up there and fight with all the strength needed to bring down Axis ships. Two important features spell altitude in the Rolls. First, on the test stand, you see the Supercharger with the highest altitude rating of any geared single-stage two-speed unit used in the Air Forces. A control in the cockpit allows the pilot to switch to high speed when he climbs over 13,000 feet. Here's number two, the automatic boost control, which holds the normal rated manifold pressure constant regardless of altitude. Changing the throttle sets both the manifold pressure and the magneto advance, thus interlocking timing and throttle control. This cockpit control cuts out the automatic feature in an emergency. There she is, more than 1,500 pounds of raw, naked power, ready to zoom the P-40F to new heights. Let's go, baby. Show 'em what the kid can do. The lives of these men may depend on getting a radio working. They need an antenna, but there's no wind. The antenna kite won't fly. But here, as always, the U.S. Army thinks of everything. This life raft for bombers, equipped with all the comforts of home, carries the works. This metal container and tube will generate hydrogen. Hydrogen which will inflate a balloon to raise the antenna and keep it up for at least 24 hours. Standard on all bombers flying over water, this is the last word in raft equipment. Now the balloon is being made ready for the antenna, the vital connection that will bring a rescue party to the scene. A scene which might be duplicated anywhere on the aerial highways of the world's far-flung oceans. Dipping this chemically loaded container into the water generates hydrogen for the balloon. It means hope and probable aid to men otherwise helplessly adrift at sea. The tube heats up fast and, if held improperly, will burn the hands. The chemical in this container has now served its purpose. The balloon is ready for its mission above. Carefully, the rod is attached to the balloon to drain out water that might have entered during the generating process. The preliminaries are over, and the balloon is set to go up to better than 200 feet. The antenna is tied to the boat so as not to tug on the radio transmitter. Now, simply enough, the antenna lead is taken from the radio and attached to the antenna itself. The ground wire is similarly taken out of its nook in the radio and dangled overboard. And here's the transmitter that will turn the final trick. The radio is held tight with these straps, permitting the operator to turn the generator crank and transmit an automatic SOS. And there's a sending key with which he can transmit further messages. This appeal for help covers nearly 200,000 square miles. A call for help that will not go unanswered. Home of the Materiel Center, the proving ground for every single solitary item of equipment used by the Army Air Forces. Coordinating the myriad of activities which make Wright Field the vital center it is, Brigadier General Arthur W. Vanneman is charged with one of the biggest jobs in our total war effort.
Whenever officers from other stations visit Wright Field for the first time, they are frankly amazed at the scope of its activities. This is not surprising. I myself, right here on the job, find difficulty in keeping track of the constant stream of developments which pour from our many shops and laboratories. Naturally, we have all the problems involved in the operation of any large aerodrome. Planes come and go with amazing frequency. In addition, we have a variety of special problems arising from the operation of ships like the B-19. Foreign aircraft, such as the British Wellington and the famous and deadly little Spitfire, present other unusual problems of operation and maintenance. Weird-looking contraptions like the contra-rotating propellers on the ferry Battle and radio-controlled airplanes make you stop and wonder and ask, what next? But behind all these marvels is a legion of men working in dozens of experimental shops and laboratories to find new processes, techniques, materials, and equipment for the Army Air Forces. For example, new designs in aircraft are thoroughly tested in these shops with flight loads represented by sand and shot bags. Tests like these make airplanes safer and better and ensure that our airplanes will stand up under the exacting conditions of combat use. Research in the field of aviation medicine with stratosphere conditions reproduced discovers the secrets of human reactions and behavior at altitudes where military airplanes must fight. Day and night, propellers roar on the test rigs, testing new designs, new materials, new ideas, while on the torque stands, new engines are given the third degree. Grueling runs under punishing conditions. Less spectacular, but equally important, are the efforts of the technicians in the photographic laboratory. The cameras they develop are truly the eyes of the Army. Communication, vital to all military operations, are doubly important to the Air Forces. That is why one of the world's outstanding radio laboratories is located at Wright Field. Armament covers guns and bombs and a whole lot more. And in our armament laboratories, we are constantly striving to develop better guns and cannon, more devastating bombs. But Wright Field is not all glamour and glory. It has its prosaic jobs too. Its supply problem is huge. Its administrative tasks, colossal. In hundreds of offices, the all-important pick and shovel work goes on day and night. In these brief scenes, I have attempted to show you only a few of the high spots at Wright Field, the nerve center of the Air Forces. We work here that you may fly with greater safety and fight with greater strength.
Warning to the Axis. Deadly mustard gas fills these standard bomb cases, standing ready to meet enemy attacks if and when they come, ready to make payment in kind. Empty no longer, the cases are sprayed a dark gray. Stenciled to tell the world what they contain. 100 pounds of answer to the Axis, multiplied thousands and thousands of times. 100 pounds of HS, king of battle gases. Ready now, stamped OK by our Chemical Warfare Service. Then, on their way to their temporary home, the bomb bay from which they will be unleashed. For the time may come when democratic governments, too, will be forced to play this deadliest of games. Into the case goes the burster, the explosive charge that will spread gas to stalk the enemy relentlessly. Then the adapter to hold charge and fuse in place. The fuse, top man on the bomb that turns it from a calm warning to an instrument of destruction. And the standard bomb shackle to hold it till the call comes, bombs away, away earthward to answer the Axis. Carefully threaded through shackle and arming pin comes the arming wire. Take warning, enemies of the United Nations. Take warning from the words of President Roosevelt. Retaliation in kind and in full measure will be meted out. We shall be prepared to enforce complete retribution. Upon the Axis rests the responsibility.
In this turret, one gun is fighting the battle of two. Its mate is jammed, as useless to the team as a broken arm to a boxer. All because headspace is improperly adjusted. Here's the story. In this gun, headspace is adjusted by attaining the proper distance between the bolt and the barrel. Failure to adjust headspace properly will cause sluggish operation and frequent stoppage when the cartridge is fully seated in the chamber. This illustrates proper headspace adjustment. The base of the cartridge is held against the base of the bolt, and the cartridge is fully seated in the chamber. If there's too much headspace, that is, if the end of the barrel is screwed away from the base of the bolt, the cartridge will not be fully seated in the chamber. The explosion tries to drive the loose cartridge forward into its proper position in the chamber, and since the head of the cartridge is held firmly in the T-slot, the explosion results in a separated case. Only the rear part of the case is extracted, leaving the forward part in the chamber, jamming the gun. To adjust headspace, the cover is raised. Using the extractor as a handle, try to move the bolt. If it moves independently of the barrel extension, as here, headspace is too loose. Retract the bolt and hold it to the rear to get at the nut. With the point of a cartridge, tighten the barrel one notch at a time. Then let the bolt go forward smartly. If the action still closes, the barrel must be tightened at least one more notch. Because it still closes, it must be tightened at least another notch. Now the action does not fully close. The notches can be seen. Loosen the barrel one notch, and the barrel will go fully forward. From this point, proper headspace is obtained by loosening the barrel two more notches. The smoothness of the action can now be tested by pulling the bolt to the rear and letting it go forward. Now both guns will fire away full bullet speed ahead, a surefire answer to a gunner's prayer.
Don't laugh. You're seeing progress flying backward for the first time. Flying backward and getting up in the world. It's the helicopter, forerunner of new and better things to come in aircraft. Here rides one of the greater achievements in the limitless science of aviation. A craft that flies forward, backward, sideways, rises and drops like an elevator. It turns as easily as your car. The time's not far when this baby will be floating just a few feet above the ocean surface, sighting Nazi subs and sinking them. It can hover stationary over one spot for any period. Those rotors just keep going, and the helicopter stands still. Yes, sir, and it knows a good parking spot when it sees it. Wouldn't you like to drop your buggy into that tough parking space? This edition picks its spot and drops right in. Pushing the conventional stick forward increases the effective pitch of the rotor blades as they pass over the tail and decreases them as they pass over the nose. The stick can move in any position. The rudder pedals increase or decrease the pitch in the tail rotor, giving directional control. The collective pitch control incorporates the throttle, which operates motorcycle style. Well, here we go again, up with a potential rate of climb of nearly 1,000 feet a minute. This helicopter can rise to a ceiling of better than 15,000 feet with only a 165 horsepower engine. Now here's an obliging pilot. His passenger says, "Drop me here like a good fellow, will you, chum?" That's a great idea, this helicopter, and it works. Steps along at a brisk pace when it wants to get places. The extent of its uses is boundless. Perhaps you can suggest a few more. Shoot 'em in. We'll have the helicopter pick 'em up. High-ranking officials of the Army Air Forces watch tests on gliders. Tests of newer, bigger cargo and troop carriers than have ever been built in this country before. This particular glider has a unique nose section which opens wide, and into the huge fuselage goes a quarter-ton 4x4, just as will be done in actual combat. Once the car is safely stowed away, the nose is carefully closed. You see only a 4x4 in this glider, since true capacity figures remain a secret for Hitler to figure out. All ready for the takeoff, the gliders are slowly maneuvered into position. Notice how quickly they leave the ground in spite of their heavy loads. Note how easily and deftly their pilots manage them. Two gliders to one airplane here, 3 later, and more to come as Army technicians continue to develop still more advanced techniques. By the hundreds will come gliders into every possible landing space, pouring out infantry squad by squad until regiments and even divisions are landed behind the enemy lines. The glider, silent transport for troops and equipment in the air, is the Air Force's answer to the problem of getting a striking force there quickly for the big job. Once off the ground, the landing gear has done its job, and in the interest of better performance can be dropped for future use. Now the gliders with troops and equipment have reached the strategic spot. Mechanized units in staggering numbers will quickly assemble for the concerted drive. Tough airborne infantry will swarm over the enemy's backyard, geared in high and raring to go. Here's a pickup on the run. This way, empty gliders hitchhike back for additional troops and equipment. When the big push comes, the gliders will be in there to clinch final victory.
As the mounting toll of that grim reaper, accident, keeps more and more fighting men and planes from leaving this country for battle abroad, General Arnold of the Army Air Forces brings a vital, urgent message. Says General Arnold,
80% of aircraft accidents are avoidable. Calm acceptance of accidents is past. The situation is grave. Pilots and aircraft never seen over Burma, Berlin, or Bataan are daily being lost.
in nearly every case, disregard of instructions, failure to observe tech orders, flight checks, and weather maps change a happy landing into scrap that will never get into the scrap.
Unfired guns. Unused bomb racks. These are being lost, not in enemy lands, but in the quiet American countryside.
These stories would never see the light of print were it not for carelessness. Carelessness that keeps Axis nations in the ring for yet another round, postponing indefinitely the day when ours will be the final victory.
While if our loss occurs in combat, our crews have demonstrated that the enemy's loss will be the greater one. Airplanes must fly. Accidents will happen, but those caused by foolish, careless, disobedient, Cocky or grandstand pilots can and must be stopped. Save the cockiness for combat.
A good pilot here. His instructor, commander, and pals rated him high, but now he's a show-off. One girl in the grandstand to watch him grandstand. Forgotten now are all the months of careful training and instruction. No need for the axes to pitch a man or machine at this pilot. He struck out without even going to bat.
Pilots, crews, and airplanes must be delivered to battle, not left smoking heaps in cornfields from California to Maine.
Stop the crash truck from being a common sight in America. Planes and crews are made to ride the skyway, not the highway.
To commanders, weed out the incompetent and weak. Eliminate the disobedient. Discipline the careless. Retain hard, fearless, disciplined men. To pilot, self-discipline makes men unafraid to fight, die, or turn back. Let the enemy see your bravery. The air forces know of it.
From Chinook Flying Tigers through Bataan, Wake Island, and the Solomons, these boys, the hard, the disciplined, the fearless, are delivering knockout body blows to blip-bent bombers and making zeros add up to just that. History's pages will be filled with records of their courage and daring, filled with heroic accounts of their deadly accuracy in fierce combat. And as important as the crews above are the crews below, the men below who keep them up. As General Arnold says,
to crews, mechanics, and sentinels on guard, only through your efforts can the job be done. To every man in the Air Forces, I pass these words. The responsibility is yours. The job is yours. Do it.
Airmen, heed these words of General Arnold and keep it flying. Far off at sea, this flyer has had to bail out. Time was when such a jump was a sure passport to Davy Jones' locker. But early in World War II, the Army Air Forces changed that leap from an invitation to drowning to a straight snub at Old Man Ocean. Couched between his chute and himself, this flyer carries a neatly wrapped life raft. Quickly, simply, this self-inflating donut, as the boys tag it, jumps to life size, prepares itself for an indefinite stay on the ocean surface. There have already been cases of men who have survived 35 days on the rolling sea in one of these life rafts. And it carries all the necessities, too, as you'll soon see. Yes, sir, Army flyers take to it like the proverbial duck. When is an aviator not an aviator? When he becomes a sailor, right at home in the Navy's own backyard. No trick to working it either. Just watch. There's the raft, parked snugly right under the parachute. The pilot unstraps the chute and promptly inflates his Mae West, just a new-fashioned life preserver. All done with a CO2 cartridge, already there for his convenience. Then he gets rid of the chute, opens the cover of the life raft to discharge another CO2 cartridge that will blow up the donut to rescue size. While the raft inflates itself, he unties it from his weight so he can board it easily in the water. Now the equipment that goes with it. There are the paddles to motivate the craft. The rope is tied to the rear of the raft and holds the sea anchor. That piece of black rubber you see dangling is a mouth tube to blow air into the raft by mouth when necessary. Just a breath every so often does the trick. The sea anchor keeps you from floating around when you want to stay put. And that baby bucket in the corner is a bailing bag to scoop out any water that pours into the donut. This kit, standard equipment on all such rafts, carries the work. Water can. First aid equipment. A dye solution, which when spread will show your drift if you're floating, or create a blotch on the water if you're anchored, so you can be sighted from above. A repair kit to fix a blowout if necessary, and stoppers to keep the air in until you can patch it. And finally, the two-colored cloth. Yellow on one side for visibility, so your pal in the next plane can sight you and pick you up. Black on the reverse side for camouflage. Friend to the rescue. He's spotted, and here's the pickup. And that's the story of the only donut that won't sink when dumped.
This is a battlefront like no other in the long history of mankind's wars. This is an air front. The working day begins, as it will end, with the ground crews, as much a part of the fortress as her wings. If you're a mechanic, you've got your own bomber. You get attached to it. But you know when your ship goes out on a mission, you may never see it again. So you do your work as well as it can be done, perfectly, because you wouldn't want anything to go wrong that would be your fault. Today the bombs will be taken from these bomb dumps somewhere in England and delivered to specific points in Wilhelmshaven, Germany. To deliver them is the job of the 8th Bomber Command, just a hauling job, yet one of the most difficult and complicated of military operations. General-purpose demolition bombs. Impact velocity as high as 750 miles an hour. Pierce 5 inches of armor plate. Destroy a factory. Briefing at 0800. Pilots, bombardiers, and navigators take their places. The group commander, Colonel Stanley Ray, steps up to the target map, and for the first time you learn where you're going. Sometimes your face turns white when you find out. Sometimes the feeling you won't come back tightens your insides. Not so long ago, you were sitting like this in a college or high school classroom, not listening too hard, perhaps even a little sleepy. But you listen here. And as you listen, you don't have time to think of yourself. Fear fades. You concentrate on the mission. Type of formation, assembly point, 0 hour, route to target, weather, enemy fighters, enemy flak, route back home. If forced down in enemy territory, destroy equipment. If taken prisoner, give no information. Name, rank, and serial number. That's all. These are the passengers with one-way tickets. And this is the crew of the Memphis Belle, 324th Squadron, 91st Heavy Bombardment Group. Just one plane and one crew in one squadron, in one group, of one wing, of one Air Force, out of 15 United States Army Air Forces. Well, fellas, we've never had an easy ride over there yet. And today won't be any different. No escort except unfriendly. So keep your eyes peeled. Don't get excited and yell when you're talking on the intercom. Save your ammunition and make your shots count. And let me know what goes on back there, Quinlan. Yes, sir. Stay on the ball, gang, and she'll bring us back like she's always done. Okay? Let's go. They have completed 24 missions in this, the toughest theater of air war, the big league of sky fighting. Their experience is priceless. And so, if the Memphis Belle comes back this afternoon, they will be sent to bring the vital lessons they have learned to thousands of air crew men in training at home. Home is America. This is a battlefront, like no other in this or any war. No monster armies, no booming cannon. Only the roaring engine sound of the bombers pounding through the quiet English countryside. This is an air front. The wheels of the Memphis Belle leave the soil of England for the 25th time. The friendly soil of England, with its ordered farms and rural hamlets, its country estates surrounded by formal gardens and well-kept parks. The England these Americans knew only from the classics they had to read in school. The England of the towns and cities, whose people have defended their island's freedom for over 1,000 years. But today, their countryside has changed. Today, their island has been converted into a gigantic bomber field, a super aircraft carrier anchored off the shores of Fortress Europe, with hangars and machine shops, with hundreds of dispersal points, perimeter tracks, and concrete runways. This is England in its 5th year of war. And this is the new battlefront, the air front, from which we seek out the enemy. Not his infantry or his artillery, not his panzer divisions, but the greater menace, the industrial heart of his nation, the foundation on which the Nazi Empire and its armies stand, the power behind the German lust for conquest. The steel mills and refineries, shipyards and submarine pens, factories and munitions plants, pinpoints on the map of Europe which mean rubber, guns, ball bearings, shells, engines, planes, tanks, targets. Targets to be destroyed. And these are the destroyers, each with a belly full of bombs, and 10 men like the crew of the Memphis Belle. Pilot Captain Robert Morgan, industrial engineer from Asheville, North Carolina. He's flown this ship across the Atlantic. The other pilot, Captain Jim Verinis, business administration student at the University of Connecticut. Radio operator and gunner, Sergeant Bob Hansen, construction worker from Spokane, Washington. Navigator, Captain Chuck Layton, chemistry student at Ohio Wesleyan. Engineer and top turret gunner, Sergeant Harold Locke, from Green Bay, Wisconsin. Used to be a stevedore. Besides keeping the Belle in order, he covers the sky above. Tail gunner, Sergeant John Quinlan of Yonkers, New York. Clerked for a carpet company, but he quit December 8th, 1941. Ball turret gunner, Sergeant Cecil Scott. Pressman for a rubber company in Rahway, New Jersey. Pilot to crew, 10,000, put on oxygen. They're climbing higher now, 300 feet a minute. The strain on the planes and on the men is mounting. The rest of the crew, Bombardier Captain Vincent Evans operated a fleet of trucks in Fort Worth, Texas. Waist gunners. On the right, Sergeant Bill Winchell, chemist for a paint company in Chicago. And on the left, Sergeant Tony Nastal, used to repair washing machines in Detroit when he was a kid. Now he's 19 and has 2 Nazi fighters, confirmed. It takes all of a pilot's strength to keep a 30-ton fortress in tight formation. But the formation is the bomber's best defense against enemy fighters. The planes are deployed to uncover every gun, stepped up and down, echelon to the right and left, arranged to overcome the danger of gunners firing into friendly ships, arranged so concentrated cones of fire from the caliber 50 machine guns cover the sky for 1,000 yards in every direction. The friendly coast of England slips by below. It doesn't look like much now, but in a few hours when you come back, if you come back, this will be the most beautiful view in the world. Higher and higher, climbing to reach your best operational altitude, 25,000 feet. 5 miles straight up. So high you can't be seen from the ground with a naked eye. So high that after 1 minute without oxygen you lose consciousness. After 20 minutes, you're dead. From now to the target, you go about your routine duties, plot your course, check your equipment, and wait. And think. Higher and colder. Temperature 40 degrees, below zero. Take off your glove and you lose some fingers. You look out at the strange world beyond, reflections in plexiglass, like nothing you ever saw before, outside of a dream. Higher and higher into the lifeless stratosphere, until the exhaust of the engines mixing with the cold, thin air condenses and streams the heavens with vapor trails. To the men in the ships, they're far from beautiful, for they point like beckoning fingers to the formation, signposts in the sky for the enemy to spot us. For these bombers to accomplish their mission, a plan is needed. Carefully worked out, timed to the minute. The job is to bomb Wilhelmshaven effectively and economically. The enemy is strong, skillful, determined to stop us. Here are his defenses. Airdromes, well dispersed. Each plane indicates a staffel or squadron of fighters. Heavy anti-aircraft, highly trained and accurate, all along the coast and defending his vital installations. Radar to warn him of our coming. Here is our plan to divide his defenses and weaken his opposition. At 13:30 hours, shortly after takeoff, 6 groups of planes will be heading toward the enemy coast from 6 directions. The Blue Force, 100 B-24 Liberator 4-engine bombers. The White Force, 300 B-17 Flying Fortresses. The Green Force, 300 B-17s with an escort of 6 squadrons of P-47 Thunderbolts. A force of B-26 Marauders, twin-engine medium bombers with 6 squadrons of RAF Spitfires escorting, almost 1,000 planes and over 8,000 men in the air. The enemy alerts all his airdromes. But which is our main force? What are our targets? Where should the Nazi controllers send their fighters? It's our job to make them guess, and guess wrong. A half hour later, at 1400 hours, the Blue Force will be heading east across the North Sea, with the White Force following. These enemy fighters are tied down, waiting to meet them, and will not be able to attack the Green Force. These fighters must come up to attack the Green Force, and thus will be no threat to the Blue and White Forces. The B-26s and Spitfires will bomb and strafe a key rail junction, diverting these 6 Staffeln and preventing the enemy from concentrating too many fighters on the Green Force, which is scheduled to bomb an aircraft factory at Hanover. At 14:30 hours, the Blue Force will threaten this entire coastal area of northwestern Germany. Which target will it be? Flensburg? The Kiel Canal? Or will it turn suddenly and bomb Hamburg, Wegesack, or Emden? Actually, it carries no bombs at all. It's a decoy and keeps the fighters from the northern area busy while the White Force, the main effort, heads for the submarine pens of Wilhelmshaven. At 1500 hours, while the White Force is over its target, only a fraction of the available German fighter strength of the area can intercept it. Because of the Blue Force diversion and the simultaneous bombing of Hanover by the Green Force. This is the plan of battle for today, drawn up by the Combined Operations Planning Committee and approved by the Commanding General. The White Force, lead group, low squadron. We've crossed the invisible line of enemy radar. The Hun is expecting us. Steel helmets go on. Watchful eyes strain. Tight formations are held tighter still. Tense gunners more alert because here it comes. The enemy coast. From up here it looks the same as any other. Houses, roads, green fields, factories, waterways. But they are the houses and fields of those who invade and oppress. They are the factories and roads of the people who twice in one generation have flooded the world with suffering. Suffering in such quantity as the history of the human race has never known. Brought torment and anguish into countless American homes. Gold stars and telegrams from the War Department. The first flak, just harmless-looking, silent puffs of smoke. Only each puff is a shell exploding, throwing shrapnel around the sky. Exactly the range, accurate flak by radio prediction. 5 miles down, Nazi anti-aircraft batteries have calculated the altitude, speed, and course. Where will the next one hit? You try not to be there. The docks and submarine pens of Wilhelmshaven. Approach to the target starts. No smoke screen can protect it. Now the enemy knows the path of your approach and walls that path with a flak barrage, but you fly right through it. Flak so thick you can get out and walk on it. Morgan changes course every 15 seconds, evasive action to confuse the flak batteries. Bomb sights set for correct altitude and speed. Bomb bay doors open. The bombing run begins. Pilot to bombardier. Okay, Vin, you've got it. Now Evans flies the Memphis Belle, controlling it through the bomb sight. And now we are most vulnerable. Committed to our bombing run, we can't dodge flak or fighters. Here's the first. Top turret fires at it. Evans must ignore the battle. Crosshairs lined up on target. Adjustments for wind drift made. 2 more fighters diving from 9 o'clock. Flak now has the range too. They've hit this fort, but he keeps on his bombing run. As lead bombardier, Evans's aim must be good. Every other ship in the group will drop its bombs when he drops his. Now one pointer on the bomb site moves toward another stationary pointer. The instant they touch, bombs will release. They touch. Bombs away. The first half of the mission is over, the easy half. Now to get home. The flak stops. That means fighters out there somewhere. A staffel lurking behind that cloud, or hiding up in the sun where the glare blinds you, and you can't see them, waiting to dive down on you. Fighters at 6 o'clock. This is what a gunner sees. A speck in the sky. That's a fighter. And then a blink. That means he's firing at you. 2,300 rounds a minute. In a running battle, one of the most important instruments is the interphone.
There's 4 of them, 1 o'clock high.
They're coming around. Watch them. Come on, you guys, get out of that plane. Bail out. There's one. He come out of the bomb bay.
Yeah, I see him.
There's a tail gunner coming out.
Watch out for fighters. Keep your eye on them, Bill.
See any parachutes, Quinlan?
2 parachutes over at 9 o'clock.
8 men still in that B-17.
Come on,
Get out of there.
There's 3 more shoots.
Flak, 11 o'clock.
Fighters, 60.
I mean, 109 at 3 o'clock. Keep after him, Winchell.
I see him. I'm on him. Come on, you. I got him.
Quinlan, confirm that fighter.
He got him, Chief. Look, he's bailing out.
Don't yell on that intercom. Fighters, 10 o'clock.
Watch those 2 at 12, Vin. They're coming in.
They're coming in, Scotty.
Get that ball turned on him.
Save the ammunition as much as possible.
Watch that fighter coming in at 3 o'clock.
He's coming in on a half roll. Pull her up, Chief. Pull her up.
This fortress is hurt. Engine on fire, losing airspeed and altitude, drifting into the flak, alone and helpless. A straggler. In a minute, Nazi fighters will swarm in like buzzards for the kill. You can watch, but you can't go down to help. You keep your formation.
Here, too, the mission is being flown. None the less real for being in the minds and hearts of these men behind. Ask anybody who's been to a field in England, or anywhere else our bombers are based, and he'll tell you that there's drama here, too. Waiting to see who's coming back. To watch them, you might not realize how tense these ground crews are. But they are tense, and plenty worried. In Air Force talk, this waiting is known as sweating out the mission. These men know the flight plan. Their watches told them when the bombers were running into enemy flak, when they were over the target, when they left the enemy coast. And now their watches tell them the bombers should be nearing the field. Every ear strains for the first sound of the engines. And then somebody hears them. And somebody sees the first faint specks in the distant sky. Every face turns to see. And count. The watchers try to read the numbers on the ships. These planes have priority to land first. The colored flares mean wounded aboard. In the hospital window, these watching men know what that means. They know what it feels like to lie on a bouncing fortress floor for hundreds of miles through the frozen stratosphere. Great pain, with the other men in your crew fighting to keep you alive until they hit the field. The field. Home. It'll be okay then, because there'll be medical care, the best, as soon as the wheels of your plane stop rolling. Head wound. Concussion. 20-millimeter cannon shell exploded in his radio compartment. Shock. Internal injuries. He'll be all right, though. Flak burst scattered flying shrapnel. He's full of steel splinters. This pilot's leg is not a pretty sight. Neither are the docks at Wilhelmshaven. These men will all get the Purple Heart. And this man, too. Posthumously. A transfusion, right in the plane. This gunner's too weak to be moved. The new life-giving blood flowing into his veins might be the blood of a high school girl in Des Moines, a miner in Alabama, a movie star in Hollywood, or it might be your blood. Whosever it is, thanks. 36 planes left this field this morning. Now 6 more arrive. That makes 20 home. And this one's 21. More wounded aboard. "22. Coming in with his left inboard engine dead. 23. With a feathered prop on his left outboard engine. 24. Southern Comfort, with a chunk of tail gone. 25. They flew home on their luck. 26. Not a scratch. The control tower learns that 2 more landed at a British field to the south. 1 a crash landing, crew safe. That makes 28. 29. A rough landing, but her pilot's badly hurt. It's a wonder he brought her back at all. 29 planes back, so far. 29 out of 36. Our losses were heavy, but the enemy's were far heavier. We destroyed a German aircraft factory, a rail junction, submarine pens, docks, and harbor installations. That's specific, known damage. But who can tell the number of German torpedoes that will not be fired, the number of our convoys that will get through now, the soldiers' and seamen's lives that will be saved, or the battles that will be won instead of lost, because of what these bombers and airmen did today. Pilot and tail gunner. They can laugh now. Fire on the inboard engine did this. Flames streaked back and burned the stabilizer, too. Another crew luck brought back. Here's old Bill. A pretty good airplane when it took off. Lost its nose, lost its navigator, bombardier wounded, top turret gunner and pilot hit, hydraulic system shot out, no brakes, no flaps. But old Bill came back. Now, among the returned crew members, talk flows like a river, talking out every detail of the mission. These are the faces of combat, faces of Americans who have watched their comrades die, faces that can never forget the enemy, and they are in no mood to have their picture taken. In the control tower, Colonel Ray, the group CO, is still watching and waiting. And then he spots the last flight. 3 more planes. And one of them is the ship everyone has been pulling for.
The Memphis Belle. The last few miles of this trip have been a joyride. The strain is over. They can leave their guns now. Now they know they're going to go home. To Spokane, Green Bay, Asheville, Detroit, Chicago, Fort Worth, and Yonkers. The Belle comes in for her landing. But first Morgan buzzes the field, cuts the grass with the giant fortress. It's against the rules, but this is a special occasion. The wheels of the Memphis Belle come back to the soil of England for the 25th time. This is a day they will never forget. Another great day soon after, Brigadier General Hansel visited the field and presented the Distinguished Flying Cross to every member of the crew. And then there was another day. Their Majesties, the King and Queen of England. Johnny Quinlan never thought anything like this would happen to him when he left Yonkers. The ground crew were a little self-conscious about being dressed in fatigues, but the Queen thought they were very nice. Finally, 2 more visitors came. General Acre, commanding the 8th Air Force, and General Devers, U.S. commander of the European Theater. The Belle crew received them in flying clothes, as General Acre read the order for what he called their 26th and most important mission. Return to America to train new crews and to tell the people what we're doing here. To thank them for their help and support, and tell them to keep it up, so we can keep it up. So we can bomb the enemy again and again and again until he has had enough. And then we can all come home. men of the 8th Air Force, who were now flying deep into Germany, bringing destruction to targets almost 1,000 miles from their bases. Destruction like this. And who have never once been turned back by the enemy. To those men, this film is gratefully dedicated.
This has been a presentation of the Library of Congress. Visit us at loc.gov.
Aviation, the art of aeronautics, began with the dreamers, inventors, and daredevils who dared to defy gravity. The journey of aviation was nurtured by pioneers like the Wright brothers, whose first flight marked a historic milestone. The role of aircrafts in world wars was groundbreaking, dramatically changing warfare strategies. This initiated a technological evolution in aviation, transforming the simplistic wings of a biplane into the thunderous roar of jet engines. Let's journey through the ages of aviation. Behind every great aircraft, there were great minds. These visionaries, like Sir Frank Whittle, the innovator of the turbojet engine, redefined air travel. Then there's Skunkworks' Kelly Johnson, the genius behind the SR-71 Blackbird. His designs combined speed, stealth, and power, crafting machines that dominated the heavens. The contributions of these pioneers have left an indelible mark on the canvas of aviation, shaping the course of history and inspiring generations of engineers and aviators. Each epoch in aviation history gave birth to extraordinary aircrafts, each with their own unique features and roles. The Lockheed SR-71 Blackbird was a marvel of speed and stealth. The F-105 Thunderchief, a supersonic fighter bomber, was vital in the Vietnam War. The P-51 Mustang, a long-range fighter, was critical in World War II. The P-47 Thunderbolt, a heavyweight fighter, was used extensively in the same war. The A-10 Thunderbolt II, the Warthog, is a close air support icon. The Messerschmitt Me-262 marked a leap forward in aviation technology. Each of these game changers were instrumental in their eras, and their legacies still resonate today. Beyond the game changers, there are those that have transcended their practical roles to become icons. The Concorde was not just an aircraft, it was a supersonic symbol of luxury and speed. The B-52 Stratofortress, a strategic bomber, is an icon of power and resilience. These magnificent machines and others like them have become much more than just aircrafts. They are enduring icons that encapsulate the audacious spirit, the relentless innovation, and the boundless ambition that define the world of aviation. For more amazing aerial footage, and to join us in this incredible journey, check out the DroneScapes YouTube channel.
The only reason for an airplane to exist is to go fast. At the Great Air Meet in Rheims, Glenn Curtis set a world's record of just over 43 miles an hour, and the quest for speed was on. In 1913, Maurice Prévost was flying a streamlined Dépôt-Dessin monoplane at 126 miles an hour, and Europe claimed the lead in aviation speed. Immediately after World War I, quest for speed became a catalyst for the development of fighter planes. Countries which had not invested in new engines for their wartime fighters would, for reasons of national pride, invest in new engines to race them peacetime. Then, in America in the 1930s, the situation reversed itself. Civilian aircraft, like the Travel Air Mystery Ship and the GB, Waddell Williams racers, became even faster than military aircraft. The reason was simple. Same engines were available to both civil racers and military fighters. The fighters had to carry guns, bombs, oxygen, and radios, while the racers were built only for speed. The world's absolute speed record was passed from country to country. And as the racers became faster and more powerful, they also became more expensive. America's Howard Hughes could afford to build his own racer, and with it set a land-plane speed record. But the absolute speed record of 440 miles an hour was set by a Macchi MC-72 seaplane in 1934, financed by the Italian government. Then military aircraft came back into the lead as the Heikel and Messerschmitt firms competed for the title. Messerschmitt Bf-109R set a speed record of 469 miles an hour in 1939, a record that lasted for many years. When the jet aircraft came out, speed records rapidly accelerated, the British breaking 1,000 miles an hour in 1956 in a Fairey Delta II. Speeds continued to climb, finally reaching 2,193 miles an hour in 1976 by the Lockheed SR-71, alias Blackbird. While speed was the object, there were many other benefits in creating ever faster aircraft. Improvement in fuels, streamlining, lubricants, materials, and the list goes on. Speed produced not only prestige and pleasure, but also utility. The speed record setters ultimately paved the way for commercial transports, business jets, and private planes.